This episode was sponsored by Property, the leading real estate agent for all real estate transactions with a comprehensive ecosystem. They combine highly trained experts with the latest technologies on an intelligent platform to provide clients, brokers, and service partners with risk-free, flexible, and simplified services. Learn more at property.com. That's property with an I.com.
We're providing this whole transformation process with a financing component on top. So meaning that the portfolio owner can just throw the entire portfolio at us, let us transform it, decarbonize the portfolio, and even decide not to invest a single cent into this transformation.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Merle.
Today I'm sitting here with Pierre, founder and CEO of Enshift. First of all, welcome, Pierre. We're happy to have you on our podcast.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I want to talk to you about all things Enshift and what you do, but of course I also want to learn a little bit more about you and who you are. So let's go back in time a little bit, and maybe you can tell us who you are. And then we know that you got your bachelor's at ETH in Zurich, and then you did your master's at MIT in the US. So tell us, what was your studies like, and what drew you to go to study abroad?
So as you asked me who I am, maybe first and foremost, I'll focus on who I am today. So today I'm a father of two wonderful kids. One is 3-year-old and the second one is a 1-year-old. And obviously I'm now focused on them and also on kind of like what kind of world I want to leave behind for them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am and who I am right now. You've talked a little bit about the past. You've talked about where I started. So I was doing my studies here at ETH as a mechanical engineer, focused on renewable energies. I then went to the States, studied the same thing at MIT, was enrolled for a master's PhD program. And somewhere halfway through my studies, I decided to drop out. So didn't pursue my PhD and started my first company. So that company at the time was called Aries.
Yes.
We were building air purification systems. And that was back in end of 2014 that we started that company. It was a couple of uni friends that started that company with me. And we built that up over the course of the next 6-7 years.
It is also a career shift, right? To say I'm stopping with my path in academics and doing something in the entrepreneurship area. What motivated you to do that?
So I always wanted to start my own thing.
Yes.
That was clear even during my studies. So the real kind of motivation was an experience that I made. I spent some time between my bachelor and master studies in China to connect a bit back to my roots. I was born in Switzerland, but originally I'm half Chinese. And when I was there, that was 2012, it was basically the peak days of really bad smog in Beijing. And so I'd land in Beijing and drive out with a Swiss thinking from the airport, asking the taxi driver, well, what's all this fog around us? And he starts laughing and telling me that's just normal smog day in Beijing. And that kind of 6-month stay in Beijing where I learned Mandarin made me think about health, or kind of the privilege that at the time we had in terms of like good air quality here in Switzerland. And that kept on nagging on me during kind of like my graduate studies. And that's why I decided to start something in that space, because I just saw that there was a gap. There weren't a lot of companies out there that took a professional approach at really clean air. So that's how we started Eris.
But did you then found Eris in the US or in Switzerland?
It was a Swiss company. At the beginning, I was operating a little bit out of the US, then a bit of time out of Asia, because that was our primary market at the beginning. And then I went back to Switzerland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the environment at MIT also kind of supported that mindset to do something entrepreneurial?
For sure. I think the whole kind of setup is completely different.
Yeah.
You have everybody around you is kind of driven to invent, build, start something on their own. There's a very rich ecosystem there for startup founders. There's a lot of advisors around. At the time, I mean, I think 2013, 14, compared to like the undergrad studies that I did at ATH, it was quite a bit of a switch in terms of mindset. But that was what I was looking for. That was also one of the reasons why I applied to American universities. Obviously, applied to all the typical universities you would as a mechanical engineer, so Stanford, Berkeley, MIT. But I'm very happy that I basically chose at the end MIT.
Yeah.
It was the best kind of starting ground to start kind of like my first company.
Yeah. And I can imagine there's also probably some things that you were able to take with you and implement also later on for the future companies and things like that.
I think what I took with me was the network. So if I look back at people that I met there, also one of my previous co-founders, they all started amazing companies, they're all amazing entrepreneurs by now. I think just if we look at dollar values that they've created, I've basically studied with 2 decacorn founders. So 2 of them have gone on to build over $10 billion in value. That was like 10 years ago that we met, right? And so in that short span, they've created immense value for society and obviously for themselves. So quite interesting to look at back and see how that network evolved.
I can imagine. Must be really inspiring people to be around. So that was, I think it was a quite defining chapter as well. Yeah, I can imagine. And then, so that was 2015, then you founded Eris, and then, so that's 10 years ago now today, and you sold it, or it was acquired by iRobot. Has this always been your goal?
I didn't know that I'd start a company out of MIT, and then the company that was going to buy me was also going to be another MIT alumni. Colin, the founder of iRobot, also obviously came out of MIT, and he had his company close to Boston in Bedford.
Yes.
That was not planned. That was total coincidence. But what I knew was that it wouldn't be my first and only kind of venture. It was never the goal. We weren't looking to build something just to sell it. We were just trying to solve a problem that at the time we felt was relevant. And the acquisition came around the corner when I think we all thought it'd be a good time to bring the company to the next stage. And that was the goal, to sell the company to a large consumer electronics company who could bring it to the next stage, which now obviously has happened. And at the same time, that freed up my time again to think about other new problems. And that's how, I decided to also start enshift.
Yeah. But you stayed on with them for another year.
To make sure that what we've built goes on and gets integrated into their offering. And after that, I decided to venture out again and start something on my own.
How do you manage the idea and the goals that you had originally with the product? How do you make sure that it stays on? What kind of things can you implement in that already existing company?
I think obviously you have to make sure that the offering has success with the clients that they have, or in the setting that they get introduced to the sales channels that they had, and that also internally the company would build up confidence in representing those products to the end customers. And a big part obviously is also about how to integrate the team, making sure that important people stay on. Yeah, that was my task for those 12 months. And then after that, when you see that things have been well integrated, it's never been my dream to stay in a large organization. I always wanted to start something on my own.
And I guess it also gives you a good feeling as the founder. It's like, okay, it's somehow settled. It works out, and I can leave. I can go. And
yes,
it's handled, sort of. Were there any things from your journey with Eris that you were then able to take with you for the next chapter?
I think I took a lot with me. So all the learnings, obviously, all the basic learnings, I would say the hard learnings that we had when we built up Eris, how to build up a team that is motivated, stands behind a common vision, but also just very basic administrative kind of learnings that we've had, how to build up early on a good governance, and how to get all the different stakeholders excited and involved properly from the get-go. I think it definitely accelerated the progress that we're making here at enshift. So from my learnings plus the network that I built and the people that I've worked with, who in big parts also have joined now enshift, have helped us accelerate and move quickly with enshift.
Yeah, I mean, these are all things that you are able to implement again, or be like, well, this didn't really work there. Let's see if it's in this context could make sense, but I'm not so sure. So maybe let's try out another route first. Things like that.
You have a much better understanding of risk. Definitely. It could be also that obviously by not taking on certain risk, which we had taken on with Eris, we could accelerate even more. But I think kind of like what we are managing here is the expected outcome. In average, is a lot better if we try to avoid these kind of like decisions that have real massive risks. So yeah, it's been nice to see that we can apply, or I can apply quite a few things from my experiences so far.
Yep. Let's talk about enshift now. So we're in 2022 now, let's say, and you're creating this business. Tell us, what is the mission of enshift, and what does it actually look like as a product?
So in 22, I was also involved after exiting my first company. Basically, they have this stash of cash that they give you, right? And you're at the same time trying to figure out what's next. You have this pile of cash that you have to deploy. It's funny, what does almost every person who gets to kind of a liquidity event do? Well, they try most likely to allocate some of that liquidity into real estate. So I was dabbling around in real estate. I got to interact with a lot of real estate investors, real estate developers. As an engineer who had a view on renewable energies, I started seeing a gap. So renewable energies that had reached a tipping point, meaning that their cost was lower than fossil fuel generated electricity. And on the other side, didn't really know how to bring those low costs, or didn't really want to bring these low cost energies into their buildings, which was mainly due to kind of like a fragmented, broken process in transforming these buildings. So if I want to decarbonize the building, which also means bringing renewable energies into the building, a lot of real estate investors associate that with an investment that will never come back. That is because the fragmented process of transforming is just one party after the other throwing kind of the shit over the fence, hoping that the next one is solving it correctly. And what I mean by that is, so if you look at, let's take a heat pump or a solar plant that you want to retrofit into a building, what happens is that an energy consultant starts building kind of a concept or a strategy for the portfolio owner. Then a planner comes, draws a nice plan for the PV plant, maybe based on the concept that was developed at the very beginning, maybe not, with deviations. Then the installer comes, and the installer takes some of the plans, but then also kind of is confronted with the real world and builds something that has, again, deviations from the plan. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like how everything gets kind of adjusted along the process. And there's all these different executors until the plans are built or the installations are finished. And then there is the facility manager who's trying to maintain and handle, or the property manager handle the energies that are generated, the maintenance over the course of the next 20, 25 years, because these are 20, 25-year investments, who today most likely are not really trained to handle those installations. So basically the financial outcome that is realized versus what at the beginning was planned by the energy consultant are two completely different things. Because of this broken process. And enshift decided from beginning on to fill that gap. So end to end, we're providing this whole transformation process with a financing component on top. So meaning that the portfolio owner can just throw the entire portfolio at us, let us transform it, decarbonize the portfolio, and even decide not to invest a single cent into this transformation. And we take it on, we manage the risk, and we implement faster than if this would have happened internally. And that's what we've been doing for the last now 2 years, and have been successfully implementing at customers that are listed, government owned, but also privately owned. And it's been going quite well, yeah.
So your customers are private or commercial?
We've both. So
Okay.
Privates, as in wealthy family offices that own portfolios, hundreds of millions of assets under management, but also listed funds. So we have Swiss stock listed funds that have billions of Swiss francs of assets that need to be transformed. And we help them maintain the value of these assets, and without them having to invest into technologies that they can't manage.
This episode was co-produced with CEF Growth, the go-to program for scale-ups in Switzerland. Are you ready to turn challenges into opportunities? Visit cef-growth.ch, apply for the program, connect with influential networks, and get expert advice to take your business to the next level.
So what exactly does it look like? What is the day-to-day thing that you do with your clients?
Let's look at it from a customer's perspective.
Yeah.
We enter and run a portfolio assessment for our customers. So provide them an insight into, well, here's your current carbon emissions level. And over the course of the next 3 to 4 years, we can reduce it over the entire portfolio to this level. And this path is detailed through actual already dimensioned climate technologies that we would install in their buildings. So we know exactly what size of PV plants, what size of heat pumps, what types of heat pumps we want to install, and even battery energy storage systems are also part of the transformation, as well as how to adjust the isolation of the buildings. And with this technical roadmap and the CO2 emissions roadmap, then comes obviously the question, what about the finances, right?
Yes.
This is a big capex outlay. Transforming, decarbonizing is all about managing this big amount of capex properly, because these installations have then to generate a return to be able to pay off this capex over the next 20, 25 years, because that's how long these assets work. We also are able to build scenarios for our customers, trying to pre-model and show them how they can generate enough cash flows by selling the energy, so heat, electricity, to whom? Because you can not only sell it to your tenants in the building, you can also sell it to your neighbors and then in the open market. That gives them a view on the cash flows that will be generated. So they can then decide if they want to make that investment themselves. And we help them manage that investment. So we help them then obviously then transform and handle the whole development. Or they leave it completely up to us to finance the whole transformation process. So we come up for the whole financing. We have dedicated funds that can be invested in the solar plants, into heat pumps, into battery energy storage systems. And we take on the risk, the full financial risk. So after that step of deciding kind of with the customer how the financial part is taken care of, we proceed to start actually transforming the buildings. So we work with a network of installers and developers, and we have our own project managers that then assure that the projects are developed in time and then also maintained, and that the quality obviously is up to the standards that we lay, so that these plans will work flawlessly for the next 20 years.
How did you, because I can imagine it must have taken some time and energy to build up this network of trust where the partners that you work with to implement. How did you build this up? Was this also the people that you hired? Did they bring in their own networks? How did that work?
I think that's also one of the tactical advantages that we had from exiting my first company. I had kind of built up trust around investors, but also around when I was pitching new clients, that they would believe me if I told them that I'm going to offer the entire value chain. Because if you look into the market today, there's very little fully integrated digital developers like us. We have a financing aspect, we have a development, we have hardware aspect, we have a monitoring aspect. Being able to provide the full value chain from beginning on was key to differentiate us, and is also still key to today to differentiate us from all the others. I haven't seen somebody who is comparable to us in the Swiss market, at least. And it was enabled through the trust that I could build up through my first exit, and the fact that I was willing to just put my own money behind it. So, saying to a customer that I can go and build for them and finance a transformation of their building portfolio, which costs, let's say, 10 million Swiss francs. I don't think there's a lot of people out there willing to take on this risk, as I was able to take on this risk and provide the liquidity that helped us quickly establish ourselves as well. Yeah. So that was key and continues to be kind of a differentiator.
Yeah. What would you say is when you talk to new clients, what is like the biggest discussion point?
Obviously, at the beginning, it was still the trust factor.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was, oh, well, have you ever done this? Okay, we'll have a look at the past projects that you've done. Oh, you haven't done one project yet. So we had to find these real initial believers, which we did. Today, it's, I would say, the real friction point is more of the customer themselves. So if they believe, for example, that they can do it themselves, or they will do it better than we are currently doing it, then nobody can convince them to do otherwise, right? Yeah. And in larger organizations, that happens quite often. So when we're pitching large real estate investors, I can always see how the first immediate thought of them is, well, if he's doing it and he's making probably a lot of money with that, we should definitely also look into this, because we're also at the end investors and it can't be that hard. And that's something that creates friction, obviously, for us. In those cases, however, I'm quite positive about the fact that most likely I will see them again down the road, because we've just seen it in a short span of 2 years. There were clients that we pitched at the very beginning who said, well, okay, I'm going to venture out and do it myself. I'm going to build this myself. I'm going to try this myself.
Yeah.
They're back now. They're discussing with us, and they've had learnings that actually validate our pitch,
Yes.
validate our offering. And so they're even better customers now than they were than some of the others that we have.
Because they've seen it.
They've seen it and
Yeah.
they've learned. But yeah, that's I think the main friction point.
So what exactly is the business model behind it? How do you ensure maybe also the profitability for both enshift but also the customer?
Our model is focused around managing these assets for the course of the next 20 years. These are energy assets. So it's about how to manage the energies that we produce. How can we manage to produce as much energy as possible? And how can we sell it to the people who bid most? So obviously the tenants, we want to sell them the energy at a reasonable price, not overpriced that we're out of the market, and we won't provide them renewable energies. Today a lot of the tenants are also focused on their own CO2 balances, so they can show that are ameliorating. That's a byproduct of what we're doing. And then selling these energies in the neighborhood. So there's regulations here and also in the EU that allows you, for example, to sell electricity within vicinity of the building, so to your neighbors. As of 1st of January in Switzerland, you're also allowed to, so next year, 1st of January, you're allowed to sell energy to communities, managing these communities, building up these communities, and then selling the energy, setting price points, etc. And the last step is obviously to then also sell the energy in the energy market. So energy exchange markets, there's different types of energies, right? There's just pure energy, the electrons, but there's also capacity that you can provide for grid stabilization. So managing these things, when I say manage energy assets, that's what I mean by managing assets. And we make our money on that. So being able to generate the highest return with these assets is our goal. And we generate basically by producing this energy and selling this energy. Everything else, so the consulting, the reporting, etc., is important for the client, but we don't think it's just a revenue stream that covers our cost that is associated with that. So we're not making our business on consulting clients, we're making our business on helping them transform the buildings, and that we can then kind of master the energy assets on their buildings. And that's where we make our long-term money. So we have recurring revenues that are generated out of that. And that also, again, kind of differentiates us from the competitors, because, energy consultant is trying to sell consultancy.
Yeah.
And our pricing is completely different because we're just covering costs there.
Yeah. I can see that's also very interesting for your clients, because it's the management part behind it that makes it special, not only the consulting.
Correct.
Basically. Yes. And so I want to talk a little bit about the numbers that you manage actually. So I've written it down here. You've developed and managed 30 megawatt peak in solar, 10 megawatt in heat projects, and 1,000 investment property calculations. What does that actually mean?
It sounds like small numbers, but let's take a megawatt peak of rooftop solar. Always remember, we're not developing like free field, open field PV plants, because if we look at the 1 megawatt peak freestanding PV plant, that's minuscule. It's very small. But for PV plants on rooftop, that's already quite a bit of area, especially here in Europe. We don't have massive rooftops, right? So 1 megawatt peak is roughly 5,000 square meter of rooftop area. So we've already developed 30 of those. It would be basically a couple of large logistics centers, but it wasn't large logistics centers. It was a bunch of commercial, industrial, and large residential buildings, and each one having an area of maybe 500 to 800 square meter. So basically that's a lot of roofs.
It's a huge amount.
And same for the heat. One large residential building typically needs 50 kilowatt of heating power, and we've already developed now 10 megawatt, right? So 200 of those buildings.
What for you were like the biggest lessons?
Lessons, nobody has done it in this way because it's really painful, because at the end you still need to, on the development level, on the actual installation, you need to go into the nitty-gritty details of each project. So we needed to build a software platform that supports our project managers to be able to run stakeholder management properly and at the same time ensure quality of all the installations. And that was kind of a real pain to scale that while also building the platform in itself. So that was a big learning, and obviously also learning that construction is, no matter how good you plan it, it's a bunch of events that happen that you then have to control, and these surprise events happen, and you can't just solve it with more overhead. So that's what I mean by understanding the nitty-gritty details of each project. Yeah.
And you know what I love? The next question that I had on here is a question that honestly every clean tech company needs to talk about somehow, is how do you ensure sustainability and profitability? But I was just like, well, enshift ensures sustainability and profitability just by everything that you described.
Mission, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. It's like, well, that's how.
That's exactly how. And then I think, again, we're trying to, when we talk about sustainability, it only costs. No, it's generating today. We've reached tipping points for all our renewable energy technologies, even the battery energy storage. I always love to remind people that the state in the US with the biggest growing kind of capacity in renewable energies is Texas. I mean, even now under Trump, right? It's continuing to grow. These tipping points are undeniable, and the people who can manage to achieve the lowest cost can also benefit greatly from it, from a monetary perspective. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's also gonna change over the next years. No matter what politics are doing, people will just realize that due to the just fast progression of these technologies and the manufacturing and the development of those projects, that one day we'll wake up and we'll be in that new world.
And where do you see, like, what's the plan for enshift in the next years?
Last year we've raised 5.5 million Swiss francs. This year we're working on another raise, which most likely will be finalized soon. We have opened up markets around us, so France, Germany, Austria, Italy. We're now present in these markets. Next 3 years is going to be about scaling up in those markets. And achieving the same kind of speed that we have in Switzerland. And then we can talk about the next 5 years when we've achieved that.
Yes. And also you've recently received the CEF Growth High Potential. Congrats, by the way. What does this mean to you also, and what does it signal for you?
It's nice to receive awards that kind of confirm that we're on a good path. At the same time, we just go back and
Keep on
continue. I
working.
will keep on working. It's not something that allows us to stop anything or
Of
enjoy
course not.
anything additionally.
Yeah.
It's really just about reconfirming, motivating, but the real work still stays the same.
I feel like especially in Switzerland, because it's such a small country, but also so very, very tightly knit, the whole entrepreneurial community. I mean, it is a community. And I often feel like the awards and the labels, what they do often, and that's something I love also about this community, is that it kind of like, if you have this label, people are like, oh my God, you have the Self Growth label. That's so cool. And then suddenly your network shifts and is more open, or networks open for you, and like people can really support you. I really like that.
Definitely, yes. I think the awareness is very important. These awards are key to creating awareness. You need to be careful that awards are not the goal of what we do.
Oh, and I mean, at the end, like you said, you need to still do the work to actually finance everything that you do. They can support you, I think, along the way. But
yes.
And talking about like along the way, so when we look into the future, how long do you think it will take until everybody agrees that CO2 neutral buildings are a competitive advantage?
I don't know if everybody is going to agree. That's not something that we're trying to achieve. We're just trying to achieve that even if there are people that don't agree, that they wake up in that new world. So independent of what a fraction of humanity or population thinks, technological progress has never been stopped by flat earthers. So
that's true. And how do you think that enshift will be like part of this shift? And I presume enshift is from energy shift.
Yes. So or we want to be a top contributor to decarbonizing real estate in Europe. That's our goal. So it's our vision to be one of the top players, meaning that you have to tackle at least 10% of European buildings in our sector. So that's how we want to shift the world.
And what do you want to tackle personally? What's next for you personally?
I think for me personally, it continues to be very exciting to see how the energy world is evolving. You have kind of also the negatives of renewables that have to be addressed. Renewables bring volatility into kind of a previously quite stable market. I'm quite intrigued for myself to see how we can overcome these technical challenges, how we can take out the volatility. And personally, I continue to be very involved in education of my kids and seeing them grow up.
You said at the beginning that you want them to grow up in a like safe and healthy world also, I guess also in terms of environmentally healthy. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like it's going in that direction?
Yeah, well, I hope so, right? I do see signs that there's always danger and there's a non-zero likelihood that it happens the other way. But what can you do? You do your best to contribute to growing the likelihood of the other side.
And you're part of that.
Yeah.
So that's also a good role model.
I hope so.
Well, thank you so much for the insights into enshift and everything that you do. And I'm super excited to see where the next 3 and then 5 years will look like for you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on this podcast. It was great chatting with you. And thanks for, the good conversation we had.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.